So what's growing on at Westwood Gardens? It's early April and we're still at risk of a freeze or two. So you have to be careful, and it's still not time, even though I know you want to plant your begonias, geraniums, marigolds, all of the warm season annuals. We're still just a little bit early. But it is, the only freezes we'll get are probably light freezes, and there are a lot of plants that can be planted and do very well right now. Several include, this is creeping phlox that we've got in bloom right now in red, white, blue, and we've got some pink and white combos on that. And then this is a little ground cover called candy tuft. These are all perennials, so that you plant them once and they continue to come back and they'll bloom each year. Candy tuft is great. It's really tough and will live for a really long time. Here's a low-growing Veronica in a blue color. If you'll mix these up a little bit, you can also sometimes get some different bloom times and extend the color in a bed. Now is the time to plant violas and pansies. They're cool season annuals, so you get color now, and they do really well in April and May. And then it starts to get, as it starts to get really warm, they'll get a bit leggy, and you can yank them out at that point and switch them over to the summer annuals. But that's planting those now gives you color now and through most of spring, and it takes the pressure off of having to plant all your beds at one time in the middle of April, once it does start getting warm enough. Now is also the time to plant dianthus and snapdragons. Even if it freezes, they can handle those temperatures, and go ahead and get them established so that they'll bloom that much sooner. Let's look at a few perennials that we've got in bloom that you can plant right now. So these are all perennials that can be planted right now in early April. And early spring is such an exciting time, especially in the perennial world. I've got several dianthus right here, perennial dianthus that lives year to year and comes back and blooms each year. Here's a little pink one called Vampire. This is more of a traditional one. Dianthus is also called Pinks as a common name. Got a red one. Here's some double blooming ones. Look like carnations, which is a type of dianthus. They love the cool weather, but perennial dianthus actually will continue to bloom on into the hot weather of summer, and then also bloom again when it gets cool in fall. They're tough little plants. Here's some really cool stuff. You know, bleeding heart. This is the traditional one, Dicentra. Pink and white blooms on it. Really cool. But look at this. We've got a white one. This one's new this year. It's Valentine. It's a red and white bloom. So here's a really cool one. It's a little short Dicentra called Burning Hearts, but look at the color red in that bloom. Pretty cool. We've even got, here's a chartreuse leaf colored one called Gold Heart, which also has a pink and white bloom on it when it blooms. Also for the shade, here's a perennial geranium. Yes, there is such a thing. This one's called Tiny Monster. And it doesn't look like a traditional geranium like you're used to seeing in your flower pots, but they are perennial and they do come back, and they're pretty long lives, so they'll last a long time. And we've also got a salvia in bloom. This one's called Eveline, a purple. May Night Salvia is another one that everyone knows. It blooms kind of a purpley, blue-purple color. Again, you can plant them now. If we get a freeze, they'll be fine, no worries. So, pretty exciting stuff. And if you like columbine, we've got columbine in bloom in multiple colors. Really cool. So now we're inside the greenhouse, and we've stumbled on a few more annuals that you can go ahead and plant now, even though we may get another freeze or two. These are African daisies, which do really well in the early spring. And these lighter oranges and yellows will go on into summer and still do really well. Lots of really bright color. This is Sweet Alyssum, which you probably recognize. You can go ahead and plant Sweet Alyssum now, and it's very fragrant. We've also got Diacia and Nemesia that you can plant, and they can take freezes. And even petunias can take some freezes. We've also got some snapdragon bulbs that you can set outside. If it's going to freeze hard, you can pull them back inside for the evening. And speaking of which, our tropicals have all arrived. So we've got our hibiscus, gardenias, duranta, mandevilla, bougainvillea, and even a pineapple. And they're all here. You can put them in patio pots and then move them inside if you're going to have a hard freeze. They are tropical, so they can't stay outside overnight, but on a hard freeze. But you could go ahead and take them home and plant them, put annuals around the base in decorative pots, and then move them in if it's going to be a hard freeze that night. So spring is almost here. It's very exciting. We're going to do our open house on April 13th and 14th. That's the kind of our kickoff to spring. So it's almost here, but there's lots of stuff you can do now anyway. So that's what's growing on at Westwood Gardens.